The late 90s truly were a special time. After half a decade in existence, Ted Turner's 24-hour channel, Cartoon Network, had truly started to come into its own. We had Toonami, we had the What a Cartoon Show, and of course, we had the classic Hanna-Barbera catalog that the network built its foundation on. And in 1998, we'd received something that introduced our generation to several classic animated films, for some of us for the first time, and that was Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater.
Welcome to Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater.
Airing from 1998 to 2007, Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater was something I always looked forward to every Saturday night at 8 p.m. sharp, and sometimes Sunday mornings at 11 as well when they'd air the encore presentation of the previous night's films. This really was a treasure trove of animated content because it was the one time where Cartoon Network was not beholden to airing strictly Warner Brothers related content. When you tuned into the Cartoon Theater, your viewing experience could entail anything from Hanna-Barbera Studios, to Universal Pictures, to Columbia, to Warner Brothers, MGM, Paramount, DreamWorks, 20th Century Fox, and yes, even Disney. The only prerequisite was that it had to be an animated property. It seems like very little to nothing was off limits when it came to this particular program on the channel. I can remember the very first night it premiered. I was 6 years old, and it was my very first experience watching Don Bluth's masterpiece, The Land Before Time. I was mesmerized at how heartfelt and how beautiful the animation was, and would continue to be with dozens of more titles for the next few years. Now, in the interest of transparency, I didn't watch the Cartoon Theater for the entirety of its run. I watched it from the premiere in 1998 to around the end of 2003. By the time 2004 came around, I think I had pretty much checked out, so I can't account for what it was like for those last 3 years or so. But for those first 5 years, it was an amazing experience. I can remember the very first time I watched An American Tail, The Rescuers, Yogi Bear and the Space Invaders, Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, the Balto Trilogy, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, hell, all of the Conroy Batman films, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, which I begged my mom to buy me on VHS after I first saw it. So many classics. So many films that I either saw there for the first time, or ones that I had only seen maybe just once prior, like the Alvin and the Chipmunks Halloween films, or the Iron Giant, and a couple of select others. But there are two titles that specifically stand out in my memory from that time. The first is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
They've unmasked over 200 criminals together. Consider it practice. In the world television premiere, it's Scooby-Doo and the Gang in a brand new movie adventure. This time, the monsters are real. Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Tonight at 8, only on Cartoon Network.
The second instance that I can clearly remember was the night that the Dexter's Laboratory film premiered on the Cartoon Theater. This was right around the same time, somewhere during the middle of December 99. It was maybe a week or so before my little sister's 4th birthday. Man, that was the coolest fucking movie I had ever seen on Cartoon Network up to that time.
In the future, Mandark finally possesses all the power he's longed for, but he has one big problem. Dexter has a time machine. Join Dexter, and Dexter in their battle to save the future of Earth. Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents Dexter in his first feature, Ego Trip, at a special time, Saturday at 8 on Cartoon Network.
Dexter's Lab, Ego Trip. And I've never seen this movie, mind you, out of that original viewing. I don't think Cartoon Network has really re-aired it. They might have aired it maybe a few more times initially around the original broadcast, but I remember in the following years never seeing that film again. But as the saying goes, all good things. Here we are in present day 2025, 18 years after the last airing, and it's crazy how fast time flies, isn't it? When I was doing research for this script, I was honestly surprised by how little information there was on the history of this series itself. Like, I expected to find a name or two who, maybe some people who came up with the idea, similar to how everyone knows that Jason DeMarco came up with the idea for Toonami. But as far as I could find, there's nothing really there to elaborate on. So I'm guessing that some exec at Cartoon Network concocted this idea and was never credited for it when it became a staple of the schedule in the following years on the channel. I mean, at least that's what I think. I guess the easiest way to separate the era that I experienced and the one that I didn't was by the announcer change. I grew up with the Cartoon Network theater from the Powerhouse era, when the late Don LaFontaine was the voice of the host. I can remember in summer of 04, I think the last few months of that year, just that first 6 months, I maybe casually watched a couple of properties on Cartoon Network, but I was really just watching Toonami at that time. But I can remember in summer of 04 watching an episode of the Cartoon Theater, and they had changed the host from LaFontaine to a female voice. I recall seeing a few of the bumpers from that era, during the Cartoon Network City era, I think is what it was, after the Powerhouse. Ed, Edd n Eddy had something to do with it, like they were like the bouncers outside the theater. It was completely different from the one from the first 5 years. But this was the period where I was starting to watch less and less Cartoon Network, like I said, with the exception of Toonami and Adult Swim, so I can't really speak too much to the quality and details of that era. But from what I understand, at least according to my research, during the last 2.5 years or so, the Cartoon Theater had started airing live-action films in lieu of their animated ones. Some being based on animated properties like the James Gunn Scooby-Doo films, or in some cases, ones that had absolutely no roots in animation at all, like Dumb and Dumber. All I can say is, thank goodness I was not watching regularly during that period anymore, because it sounds like the slow death of all things joyful. I remember the era where Cartoon Network had started airing live-action properties just from flipping through the channels at that time. Like I said, I wasn't really watching it at that point except for Toonami and Adult Swim, but I remember they had like some competition live-action game shit. I don't know. I'm not getting into that here. Back on topic, Cartoon Network was such a huge part of my childhood in the 90s and early 2000s. I wasn't much of a Nickelodeon kid. It was Cartoon Network for me 9 times out of 10. Being a kid during that time, during that first initial decade of Cartoon Network's existence, was something I wouldn't trade for the world. And Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater was just one small part of a period in my life that I will forever hold dear to my heart. To the folks who were running things at Cartoon Network during that era, you have my eternal gratitude. I don't know who exactly conceived this idea, who greenlit it, or who worked out all of the legal shit so that we could experience a plethora of classic animated films from a variety of different studios, but thank you. Now, if you're old enough to have grown up with Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, please feel free to share any fond memories you may have in the comments. I would love to hear some of your personal stories. Also, out of the decade that it aired, which era did you experience Cartoon Theater? The Powerhouse era? The CN City era? Or what I guess the last era was called the Yes era? Again, let me know in the comments should you feel comfortable with sharing. I really enjoyed putting this video together on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater. It was something I had been contemplating for a while, so I'm glad that I was finally able to get it done. Hopefully, some of you will enjoy it as well. Either way, I appreciate everyone that watched the video for the entirety. I have plenty more Cartoon Network related videos to come in the future, so if that's something you may be interested in, then I kindly ask that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and share this with anyone who you feel may be interested. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and each other.